When I, Inanna, finished school on Nibiru, me and my brother Utu and my cousins returned to Earth. Chi not for nostalgia, but for conquest. Nibiru taught me power, but my spirit craved more. In Sumer they had operations going full blast. I always wanted more, believing it was my destiny to rule all realms. I have studied the art of psychological love. I was confident and clever and had set my goals high, and there wasn't anything going to get in my way. Women had no land rights. I wanted my own. My family expected obedience, a daughter, a pawn. They saw a future bride, not a queen. I walked Uruk streets, seeing opportunity where others saw weakness. The gods watched, uneasy. My father worried. My brother disapproved. I would not beg for power. I would seize it. My arrival was not a homecoming. It was an invasion. The age of Inanna was about to begin. I needed a business, something to start me a source of income. I came up with the bright idea to turn my house into a brothel. They said a woman could not own land. I laughed. I gathered my gifts, not for adornment, but as currency. I charmed the city elders, trading for a barren plot on Uruk's edge. I directed every detail: cedarwood, obsidian, gleaming gypsum. Eanna rose not as a dwelling, but as a declaration. Balconies overlooked the city like a predator's perch. I had claimed my place. The foundation of my empire was set. In the heart of Uruk, a ziggurat rose, Eanna, my house. To some it was pleasure, to others, horror. Men entered with gold and desire, but rarely left unchanged. I am the ruling, queen, architect. I became the first madam, my beauty and cunning shaping every secret within these walls. The deal was simple, or so it seemed. The miners needed a place to get their load off. The diggers were stressed out and needed a place to relax. I created that for them. The miners brought their gold and exhaustion to my, Inanna's house, seeking escape. But the real draw was, I trained my girls in arts beyond pleasure, masters of control. They unlocked men's will, wallet, and soul, turning pleasure into power. I built an army, women wielding femininity as the galaxy's most devastating weapon. My cunning was inherited, a legacy of forbidden knowledge passed down by my grandmother Ninlil, the devil's own daughter. Ninlil taught me the arts of seduction, deception, and manipulation, power not seized by force but in shadows and whispered promises. With these lessons, I learned true power, not built with stone, but with broken hearts and empty pockets. A house is empty without life. I watched the men of Uruk, exhausted, unfulfilled. They craved escape, solace, a place to simply be. I saw opportunity. Eanna would be a sanctuary, not a temple. Fine beer, all types of drugs, incense, music, an oasis for weary souls. Scandalous, perhaps? But I cared only for power. I offered comfort, discretion, and respect. Men left Eanna renewed, grateful, loyal, but broke. My business was not just pleasure, it was influence. Each satisfied guest became a brick in my foundation. Word spread. Eanna thrived. I was not just a hostess, but a merchant of dreams. My independence grew with every gold and silver coin. I was becoming a force in Uruk, not by decree, but by shrewd enterprise, and business was booming. I needed help, but not servants, partners. I found the finest women overlooked by society: widows, daughters, outcasts. I offered them purpose, gold, silver, and respect. I taught them conversation, confidence, and the art of sex and influence. We became a sisterhood, mastering subtle power. Their fear turned to pride, their dependence to independence. We supported each other, celebrated each other. Eanna became a fortress of femininity. Men found comfort, but women found freedom. The city whispered against us, called us harlots. They feared our power. Their fear fueled my resolve. I was not just building a business, but a revolution for strong women. We proved women could thrive on their own terms. We became masters of our fate and destiny. I also hired muscle-bound men to be my enforcers. They would rough guys up for me who didn't want to pay up. These men would do whatever I say, and in exchange, they had a good time at my house. Eanna's success shocked gods and mortals alike. I became super wealthy, influential. My patrons were merchants, scribes, officials. My grandfather Enli raged. I was getting gold and silver, earned, not inherited. Society resisted, but their opposition only made Eanna more alluring. I didn't fight their system. I built a better one. My victory was slow, steady, gold coin by gold coin, heart by heart. Eanna became Uruk's true center of power. I was no longer just Inanna. I was a queen in my own right. My throne was built on fulfilled desires and female independence. I rewrote their rules for my triumph. I stand on my balcony, Eanna glowing below, a beacon of new power. I needed no war, no decree, just ambition and courage. I am the first, but not the last. I have shown women they can be queens, builders, and masters of destiny. My name is Inanna. My reign has just begun. My family tree was a twisted, thorny thing. At its root was my great-grandfather Halal, the magnificent angel Samyaza. He was a creature of light who chose darkness. He led 200 of his celestial brethren in a rebellion against the divine order. And what was the catalyst for this cosmic treason? What type of power could make an angel fall from grace? I knew the answer. It was Kuchi. My great-grandfather, a being of immense power and wisdom, had looked upon the daughters of men and was consumed by lust. He traded eternity for a moment of earthly pleasure. He chose Kuchi over God. This was the most profound lessons I learned in my young life. I saw a truth that others missed. They saw Samyaza's fall as a tragedy, a cautionary tale of weakness. I saw it as a demonstration of ultimate power. If Kuchi could topple archangels, what could it do to mortal men and others? To the grunting, sweating Anunnaki who thought they ruled the world? I realized that this force, so often dismissed or shamed, was my birthright. It was a weapon of controlled power hidden in plain sight. It was my key to storming the gates of the patriarchal world that sought to keep me in a gilded cage. The men around me, the gods and kings, built their power on gold, on armies, on edicts written on clay tablets. They believed themselves invincible. I laughed at their arrogance. I knew their secret weakness. I knew that beneath their armor and their titles, they were all just like my great-grandfather. Slaves to a primal urge they could neither overstand or understand nor control. Men wanted to rule the world, but Kuchi ruled men. It was a simple, beautiful equation. A divine loophole that I could exploit to its fullest extent. This knowledge fueled my ambition. It gave me a purpose. I would not beg for a seat at the table. I would build my own table, and the men would crawl under it for scraps of my affection. I would take my great-grandfather's sin and reforge it into a crown. I would build an empire on the very thing that had caused his downfall. I looked at the world of men with its rigid rules and its exclusion of women from power, and I smiled. They had no idea what was coming. The Queen of Heaven and Earth was about to play the game, and I was playing for keeps. My dark family wisdom was only the beginning. Like I said, my formal education took place far from the dusty plains of Earth, Chi on the advanced, shimmering world of Nibiru. There, I was enrolled in a very special kind of school. It was an institution dedicated to the highest forms of celestial artistry of sexuality. While others studied astrophysics or genetic engineering, I majored in the humanities of the heart. My curriculum was designed by the most ancient and knowledgeable matriarch of them all, my great-grandmother Anutu, the wife of the supreme god Anu. Anutu understood that love was not just an emotion, it was a science. At this Nibiran academy, I was trained in the art of love. This was not the sentimental nonsense of poets. This was a deep, technical overstanding of emotional connection, of how to forge bonds that felt sacred and unbreakable, even when they were built on lies. I studied the art of lovemaking, learning techniques that could drive any being, divine or mortal, to the very brink of madness and ecstasy. It was a physical language, and I became its most eloquent speaker. Every touch, every kiss, every movement was a carefully chosen word in a symphony of sensation. Next came the art of seduction. This was different from my great-grandmother Anutu's lessons. My grandmother Ninlil had taught me the craft of manipulation. Anutu taught me the science of love. I learned about pheromones, about resonant frequencies, about the subtle biochemical triggers that governed attraction. I learned how to command a room without saying a word, how to project an aura of irresistible desirability that pulled men into my orbit like helpless satellites. My final course was the art of romance, the mastery of grand gestures and intimate moments that could convince any target they were the center of the universe. This galactic education armed me with a formidable arsenal. I returned to Earth not just as a goddess of beauty, but as a master strategist of the heart. I had the practical, cynical wisdom of my grandmother Ninlil and the sophisticated scientific knowledge of my great-grandmother Anutu. I overstood both the gutter and the stars. I could speak the language of raw lust and the poetry of divine love. I was now perfectly equipped to build my house of horror and pleasure, a place where I could put all my theoretical knowledge into devastating practice. I, Inanna, the original Baddie. Before influencers and celebrities, there was me. You can call me the goddess of love, the queen of the heavens, but really, I invented sexy. I saw the world was boring and decided to spice it up. I didn't just walk into a room, I owned it. My confidence was about loving every inch of myself. Sexy isn't just looks, it's a feeling. It's the power you feel when you know you look good. Fine is when you're so put together, people stop and stare. I was the blueprint for a woman unapologetically herself. I wanted every woman to feel that way. My mission was to help them unleash the goddess inside. I started a revolution of self-love, beginning with me saying, "Damn, I look good." You ever hear that song, Brick House? That was about me. The Commodores saw my legacy and wrote an anthem. They celebrated women who are strong and built to last. It's about being thick, juicy, and fabulous. The divine ratio, 36, 24, 36. It's not about measurements. It's about balance and power. Beauty standards change, but real confidence is forever. Forget trends. Love yourself at any size. You are the standard. Loving yourself is the sexiest thing you can do. When you love yourself, you glow from the inside out. That's the Inanna glow. Look in the mirror and say, "I'm a brick house." My inventions? Iconic. Let's talk fashion. I invented the pump high heel. It gives you height, drama, and a powerful click-clack. It's not just a shoe, it's an attitude adjustment. Then came the sundress for when you want to be cute and comfortable. It's the perfect outfit for feeling effortlessly beautiful. For turning up the heat, there's the slit dress. It's elegant, with a surprise flash of leg. It makes you feel like a movie star. And the two-piece outfit? For the woman who loves options. It's about versatility and creating your own style. Be the master of your own look. I gave you heels and dresses, but the magic starts underneath. I invented sexy lingerie for you. It's about feeling good from the inside out. It gives you a secret boost of confidence. Gold hoop earrings? They're a statement. They frame your face and say you're bold. They're timeless and always in style. All these elements create the baddest bee vibe. It's about being strong, powerful, and independent. A baddest bee makes her own rules. She knows her worth and demands respect. It's about being a boss. Being the baddest bee is a mindset. It's about conquering the day and being proud of your accomplishments. It's being a woman in her full power. Being sexy and fine is about your spirit. Sexy is your confidence. Fine is your self-respect. It's about having a good heart and a sharp mind. You have the power to be sexy and fine just as you are. Find what makes you feel powerful and do more of that. Don't let anyone tell you you're too much. You are powerful, a force of nature. Embrace your strength, intelligence, and beauty. The world needs your light. We change the world, one confident woman at a time. I may have started it all, but it's yours to carry. Be the baddest, most beautiful version of yourself. Love yourself fiercely and own your power. Every woman can be a goddess in her own right. You just have to believe it. Occur. While the Anunnaki and Igigi toiled in the mines for gold, I, Inanna, ran a different operation. My girls were sexy like me on the inside and outside. I taught my girls to mine not the earth, but to mine the pockets and hearts of men. The first lesson, make them feel like kings. Then ask for gifts, small at first, then more. I called it emotional prospecting, digging deep for gold and security. The ultimate prize, a ring, a baby, a claim to a man's future. My soldiers were the most skilled and merciless gold diggers the world had ever seen. Before I get into more about how I ran my business, let me tell you about my pets, my babies. If you think a lioness is fierce, let me tell you about the gift I received from the stars. One day, an Igigi, yes, one of the divine watchers from Mars, presented me with not just any pet, but 2 hybrid lioness cubs, bred on the red planet itself. These weren't your average felines. Imagine creatures combining the grace of a lioness, the bite of a shark, and the deadly elegance of a scorpion. Their bodies were sleek and golden, but their teeth, razor-sharp, like a predator from the depths of the ocean. And that tail? Pure scorpion, complete with a venomous stinger that could paralyze or kill with a single flick. But the most magnificent part? Their manes. Not soft fur, but a wild halo of porcupine quills. With a thought, these could shoot out, embedding themselves deep in flesh, their backward-facing barbs ensuring they never came out easily. Beauty and terror, all in one package. Now these lionesses weren't just my pets. They were my protectors, my shadows, my extensions. Their moods? Wild and unpredictable, just like my own. One moment, they'd be nuzzling my hand, purring with affection. The next, if I felt a surge of anger, they'd become living weapons. Fangs bared, tails poised, ready to strike at anyone who threatened me. Their connection to me? It was deeper than loyalty. We shared a telepathic bond. They could sense my every emotion, every flicker of desire, every pulse of rage. If I decided someone had to go, they'd know before I even gave the word. Sometimes they'd act on my feelings alone, no command needed. I trusted them with my most precious treasure, my son Haru, also known as Tammuz. When he stayed with me, they guarded his room day and night. Even with the constant threat from his uncle Seth, I knew no one could get past my lionesses. They'd sit at his bedside, serene in the morning, but as the sun set, they grew restless and watchful, protective as a mother defending her cub. These hybrids weren't just muscle, they were clever, almost human in their intelligence. They could outwit any intruder, turning my home into a fortress. Yet, they also delighted in our celebrations, basking in the music and laughter as I entertained my guests, ever vigilant, but never aggressive without cause. When I walked my sacred grounds in Uruk, they followed, silent but alert. No disrespect went unpunished. Their very presence inspired awe and fear. My roaring warriors, my lamenting companions, the embodiment of love and war. Majestic, terrifying, unpredictable. My hybrid lioness monsters are more than protectors. They are a living symbol of my dual nature, my power. And with them at my side, I am unstoppable. I saw men's weakness as a resource to be weaponized. I viewed coochie as more than anatomy. It was a biological weapon, a stargate, a tool for domination. I trained my girls in the art of biochemical manipulation, seduction as psychological warfare. They learned to trigger and control men's hormones, a scent to spark anxiety, a touch to create desperate attachment. This was the science behind being coochie whipped. Not magic, but a calculated biological assault. Femininity became a force men couldn't resist. Their own biology betrayed them. I taught my girls to command, not submit, flipping the power dynamic. Men, lost in a hormonal haze, became willing slaves in a matriarchal coup. Coochie became the house's true currency, more valuable than gold, and the house always win. It offered intimacy, connection, and the feeling of being chosen. I understood the power to grant or withhold this connection was the ultimate control. I weaponized creation itself, turning pleasure into conquest. My army learned to wield this power with devastating skill. The world would never see women the same way again. My house was no brothel, really. It was a training ground for world domination. The men never stood a chance. The science of submission was now the law of the land. My ambitions went beyond seduction. I was building a new world order. My plan: have babies with the powerful binding men to my cause through blood and legacy. Each child was a victory, each pregnancy a strategic conquest. Baby showers became war councils, celebrations of triumph and tactical planning. Birth rituals transformed into ceremonies of feminine power, connecting women to ancient traditions. The house became a matriarchal cult, a sisterhood bound by blood and shared purpose. I taught my women to harness latent telepathic abilities, deepening their control. They could read men's desires and fears, making manipulation effortless. My army grew beautiful, pregnant, telepathic gold diggers, united in power. They drained men's resources, using their seed to build a new world. The Lulu Amelu women and my other women were no longer pleasure workers. They were revolutionaries. My vision was clear: a world where women ruled and men were mere instruments of control. The sisterhood was unstoppable. The Stargate was open. The Eanna Ziggurat was a fortress of psychological warfare. Men entered seeking pleasure but found themselves trapped in a shifting labyrinth. Gaslighting was the weapon. My priestesses expertly erased memories and identities. A man's night of passion was denied the next day. Love became a cold, calculated lie. The house was a hall of mirrors, distorting reality until men doubted their own minds. Paranoia spread, whispers turned friends into rivals, camaraderie into suspicion. Divided and isolated, the men became easy prey. Their gold and natural wealth was taken, their confidence shattered, their sanity unraveled. The promise of paradise was a trap, pleasure was the bait, torment the hook. Every laugh mocked them, every touch deepened their submission. The house preyed on their insecurities and exhaustion. They came for escape but found a personalized hell. My control was total, our victims left as hollow shells. The labyrinth consumed them, body and soul. No man escaped unchanged. Some chambers were reserved for a darker spectacle, my theater of humiliation. Here, the powerful were broken for the amusement of the elite. Priestesses orchestrated scenes of submission, stripping men of dignity before a jeering audience. Emotional torment was relentless. Praise turned to mockery, pride to shame. Victims became desperate for approval, enduring any degradation. Pleasure and pain blurred. Men were conditioned to crave their own humiliation. The house erased identities, sending men back into the world as broken warnings. My power was absolute. My theater left only ghosts behind. My house was haunted by more than memories. It was a realm of body horror and supernatural dread. Secret torture rooms awaited those who resisted or bored me. The Ziggurat's foundations hid the bodies of the vanished, their ghosts tormenting new visitors. Ecstasy turned to terror as faces decayed and whispers became screams. I used these hauntings to deepen my control, spinning tales of lovers bound to me forever. Rumors of gruesome fates kept men compliant, trapped by fear. Hallucinations blurred reality, victims felt their flesh rot, their minds unravel. Priestesses encouraged these delusions, pushing men to madness. In the house of horror, the line between real and imagined pain vanished. The haunting was total, body, mind, and soul. And deep beneath the ziggurat, my house revealed its true purpose, a temple of sacrifice. The most arrogant or unlucky men were chosen for the final ritual. Elaborate ceremonies consumed their bodies and souls, fueling my power. The ritual was cold, methodical, a complete inversion of male dominance. Dismemberment was precise, the victim forced to witness his own destruction. Legends grew, the soil fed by blood, the feast tainted with human remains. Men gambled with their lives for a night of pleasure, but the house always won. My men-eating cult thrived on ruin, her power absolute. My revolution wasn't fought with swords, but with biochemistry and psychology. I taught my girls to be alchemists of the human body, weaponizing hormones and desire. Men, entranced and pliable, mistook control for love, never realizing they were subjects in a grand biological experiment. Femininity became a force of nature, intelligent, strategic, and impossible to resist. My revolution and rise to power wasn't just about controlling men, it was about creating the next generation. My priestesses chose the most powerful men, bearing children as acts of conquest. Baby showers became war councils, celebrating each pregnancy as a victory. Childbirth was reclaimed as a sacred rite, forging a sisterhood and building an empire, one generation at a time. As my influence grew, a radical shift in the social and political landscape began to unfold. My strategies, born within the walls of my house of horror and pleasure, started to destabilize the established gendered power dynamics on a grand scale. The wealth of the Anunnaki miners and the lower-ranking Igigi was being systematically siphoned into the coffers of my matriarchal collective. This economic shift gave me and my followers tangible power. They began to acquire property, businesses, and political influence. The world, which had for so long been ruled by men's brute strength and control of resources, was now being subtly reshaped by women's control of men. This emerging matriarchy was built on a foundation of biological and social leverage. Echoing the speculative fiction of Naomi Alderman's The Power, my women wielded an ability that gave them an undeniable physical and psychological advantage. While they didn't shoot electricity from their fingertips, their mastery of biochemical manipulation and psychological warfare was just as effective. Men became the fearful, oppressed class, walking on eggshells, desperate not to displease the women who held their hearts, their wallets, and their very sense of self in a vice-like grip. It was a quiet, insidious takeover, a revolution happening in bedrooms and boardrooms across the land. The social structure began to invert. In this new world order, a woman's value was determined by her skill in manipulation and my ability to produce heirs for the cause. Men's value was reduced to their capacity to provide. They became drones serving the queen. This dystopian matriarchal society was, in its own way, as oppressive as the patriarchy it replaced. Yet for me and my followers, it was justice. It was the logical conclusion of a world that had for too long undervalued and exploited them. They were simply returning the favor, using men's own lust and arrogance as the instruments of their downfall. The final piece of my new order was the establishment of a dynastic, theocratic matriarchy. I am the goddess queen, and my priestesses were the new nobility. Power was passed down from mother to daughter. The laws, which were once written by men to protect their own interests, were now rewritten by women to protect theirs. The house of pleasure and horror had succeeded beyond its wildest dreams. It was no longer just a single building in Uruk. Its philosophy had spread like a plague, or a gospel, creating a new world where femininity was power, pleasure was a weapon, and men had finally been put in their place. I want to tell you my truth, not the version written by men, but what really happened the day the world was washed away. I watched the stars from my home, the rivers below, and the Lulus, people crafted from clay and our own gentics, given life by the gods. They were meant to serve, but they loved, dreamed, and became so much more. I walked among them, listened to their laughter, their prayers. The world teemed with life. But not all gods saw it that way. Some saw chaos, not community. My grandfather Enli, commander of the earth, saw only a problem growing louder every day. I tried to make them see the beauty in the chaos, but my voice was drowned out as women are always amongst egotism men. Enlil's frustration grew into rage. A storm was coming, one none of us could imagine. The crack in our family would shatter the world. I loved the Lulus, but I was powerless to stop what was coming. This is the story of how I lost everything and found my strength. Listen closely. This is not just my story, but a warning and a promise. The world was about to change forever, and so was I. The Lulus multiplied, their cities overflowing, their noise rising to the heavens, a heartbeat of life. The level of sexual interest had gotten a little out of hand, and this made Enlil angry. Enlil never thought that the Lulus should be given the capacity to reproduce without the absolute control of the Anunnaki. The unique characteristics of the Lulu's telepathic abilities added an unknown thrill to the sexual experience. The word got around that the gods were running off into the woods, frolicking and reproducing with the Lulus. In those times, birth was not the painful process that you know today. Birth was easy, and a time to be at one with Mother Ninti, the goddess of all life. It was a time to experience union with the cosmos, to bring forth more expressions of Prime Creator. Not of pain. The Anunnaki and the Lulus enjoyed being pregnant. Every birth brought more Lulus and more festivals and more fun and beer. The grains that grew on Earth developed the most delicious beers, ales, and mead and alcohol made from fermented honey and water. For me, it was beautiful. For Enlil, it was unbearable. He saw their growth as rebellion, not a miracle. The gods argued, some missed the quiet, others saw potential. My brother Utu and I believed in the spark we'd given them. Enki, their creator, was torn between love and duty. The family fractured. The Lulus had no idea their existence was sparking a war above. In the Great Assembly, Enlil called them flawed, too fertile, too loud, too independent. He wanted to thin the herd. The words chilled me. He wasn't talking about animals, he meant people, our creation. That was the moment I knew something terrible was coming. The gods' division would soon become disaster. The Lulus' fate was being decided without their knowledge. I felt powerless, but I would not forget. The storm was gathering, and I braced myself for what was to come. Enlil acted. He starved the Lulus, holding back the rains. Fields turned to dust, famine spread. Their joy became cries for mercy. I tried to help, but it was never enough. The Lulus survived, resilient, multiplying again. Enlil's anger deepened. Famine hadn't worked. He demanded a flood to erase them all. Enlil kept these observations secret. He determined to wait until the last possible moment, so there would be only enough time to transfer the families of Anu and the Anunnaki to the orbiting station. He made certain there could not be sufficient time to rescue the Lulus. The spies of Enki had informed him of the polar shift, every 50,000 years, called an epoch. The gods swore secrecy. We were forbidden to warn the Lulus. I was devastated, forced to watch as the world I loved was condemned. My pleas fell on deaf ears. Even the gods wept, but the oath bound us. The countdown began. The sky darkened. I mourned for the world, powerless to stop the betrayal. The ultimate act of cruelty was set in motion. The flood would come and everything would change. I held on to hope even as despair threatened to consume me. The world's end was near, but I was not ready to give up. Not yet, not ever. Even in darkness, hope survives. Enki, my rebellious uncle, found a loophole. He warned Zusudra through a wall, build a boat, save life. As the rain began, I made my own plan. I gathered my priestesses, my sisters, and led them underground into ancient tunnels. We carried knowledge, supplies, and hope into the earth's belly. The flood came, a cataclysm that drowned the world. From the heavens, we watched in horror as life vanished beneath the waves. I wept for the lost songs, the lives extinguished by pride. But I clung to hope, Enki's plan, my girls hidden below. I sent my love to them, a silent promise to return. Days passed in silence, grief nearly breaking me. But hope, fierce and desperate, kept me whole. I prayed for survival, for a future beyond the flood. I would not let despair win. The story was not over. When the waters receded, we returned to a world of mud and silence. Zusudra survived. Life endured. I sent a signal. My priestesses emerged from the earth alive. Grief became resolve. The old world was gone. We would build anew. I chose Uruk, a patch of fertile ground, a blank slate. No more old rules, no more servitude. I gathered women, survivors, seekers, sisters. In this house, you are not property, you are queens. We founded the House of Inanna, a sanctuary, a school, a center of power. I taught them to read the stars, manage wealth, own property, love freely. In Uruk, women were equals. My priestesses became leaders, scholars, entrepreneurs. We built more than a city. We built a new way of life. Loss is not the end. Heartbreak is not the end. Even when the world is washed away, you can build anew. Find your fire. That is your truth, your power. I lost a world but found my purpose. Rise, claim your space, and never forget the queen you are. This is your story. Now go right, run, tell it. My legacy is a tapestry of terror and triumph, pleasure and pain. I was a revolutionary madam, burning the rulebook of a rigged world. My house was a crucible of feminine power, where women learned their bodies and minds were weapons. I turned insults into doctrine, gold digger into economic warrior, and coochie into a cosmic force. I toppled power with charm and cunning, proving the mind is deadlier than the fist. My story is a dark, hilarious warning. Never underestimate a woman done playing by your rules.